The worst part about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. I learned this lesson the hard way when my sister Natalia called me at 3 a.m., sobbing uncontrollably. My name is Jolie, and 6 months ago, I had a promising future and $87,000 in savings. Today, I have neither, thanks to the person I trusted most in this world. Jolie, please, I need your help. Natalia's voice cracked through the phone. The doctors found something. I need surgery, and I need it fast. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. What? What did they find? A tumor, she whispered. They caught it early, but I need to act now. There's this specialist in Boston, but my insurance won't cover it. I don't know what to do. I'd always been the responsible sister, working extra hours at my marketing job, living below my means, and saving religiously for my dream of starting my own business. Natalia was the opposite, spontaneous, creative, and perpetually broke. How much do you need? I asked, already knowing I'd help her. She was my sister, after all. The procedure costs $85,000, she said between sobs. I know it's a lot, but Mom and Dad can't help, and I'm scared, Jolie. I'm so scared. I met her for coffee the next morning. The usually vibrant Natalia looked pale and drawn, her hands shaking as she clutched her cup. The doctor says if we wait too long, the options become limited, she explained, sliding medical papers across the table. I glanced at them, official-looking documents with medical terms I didn't understand. Have you told Mom and Dad? I asked. She shook her head. Mom's still recovering from her hip surgery. I can't put this on them right now. Please don't tell them. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We'll figure this out. That afternoon, I withdrew my entire savings, except for a few thousand for emergencies. When I handed Natalia the cashier's check, she hugged me tight. I'll pay you back, she promised. Every penny. Just focus on getting better, I said, fighting back tears. 2 days later, Natalia flew to Boston. Mom called me, worried about her sudden trip. She said she's visiting old college friends, Mom said, but something feels off. I hated lying to her. I'm sure she's fine, Mom. You know Natalia, always spontaneous. The updates came sporadically over the next few weeks. Texts about pre-op preparations, recovery time estimates, and vague medical details. I wanted to fly out to be with her, but she insisted the timeline was uncertain. The doctors want to try some preliminary treatments first, she explained during one of our rare phone calls. It's complicated. A month passed, then 2. Natalia returned home, claiming the surgery had been successful, but she needed time to recover. She seemed different, more distant, avoiding family gatherings, making excuses about follow-up appointments. I stopped by her apartment one evening with soup and her favorite movies. She answered the door in workout clothes, looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. The recovery's going well? I asked, studying her glowing complexion. Oh, yes, she said quickly. The doctors are amazed at my progress. Listen, I can't hang out tonight. I have a virtual support group meeting. As I drove home, something nagged at me. The medical bills she'd shown me, her sudden recovery, the way she changed the subject whenever I mentioned repayment. But I pushed these thoughts aside. She was my sister. We'd shared everything since childhood, secrets, clothes, dreams. She wouldn't lie about something like this. That night, I scrolled through my nearly empty savings account, trying to quiet the voice in my head that whispered something was very wrong. My business plans would have to wait, but at least my sister was healthy. That's what mattered, right? My phone buzzed with a text from Natalia. Love you, sis. Thanks for always having my back. I smiled and replied with a heart emoji, unaware that in a few short weeks, my world would shatter when I discovered the truth about my sister's surgery and the web of lies that would tear our family apart. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs. But trust is like that. It blinds you to the obvious, especially when it comes to family. And Natalia? She was just getting started with her performance of a lifetime. 3 months after Natalia's surgery, I found myself at our friend Emery's housewarming party, nursing a glass of wine and trying to ignore the growing pit in my stomach. Something felt off about my sister lately. The way she dodged questions about her recovery, her sudden shopping sprees, and most notably, her complete silence about repaying the loan. You should see the new bag she got, I overheard Emery telling another guest in the kitchen. Natalia always had expensive taste, but lately she's been living like a queen. I froze, pretending to check my phone while listening. Oh my God, did you see her Instagram stories from the Maldives? Another voice chimed in. That resort must have cost a fortune. My hand tightened around my wine glass. Maldives? Natalia had told our family she was at a wellness retreat in Vermont last month, focusing on her post-surgery recovery. She told me she got some kind of inheritance, Emery continued. But between you and me, she was bragging last week about how she convinced her sister to give her all this money for some emergency. She seemed pretty proud of herself. The wine glass nearly slipped from my hand. I set it down carefully, my fingers trembling. Jolie! Natalia's voice rang out as she burst into the kitchen. There you are! Come see what Mario got me. She grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the living room, seemingly oblivious to my rigid posture. Her fiancé Mario stood by the fireplace, chatting with our father. Look at this! She thrust her wrist in my face, showing off a gleaming diamond bracelet. Isn't it gorgeous? Mario surprised me with it last week. Beautiful, I managed to say. Must have been expensive. Oh, you know Mario, she laughed, touching his arm. He loves spoiling me. Mario smiled sheepishly. Actually, Nat insisted on this one, said she had some extra savings to splurge. Dad raised an eyebrow. Extra savings? From where? Oh, you know. Natalia waved her hand dismissively. Just been careful with money lately. Speaking of which, Jolie, can we talk about that thing we discussed? In private? She pulled me into Emery's guest bedroom, closing the door behind us. I know I promised to start paying you back, she began, but things are still a bit tight with all the post-surgery expenses. Maybe we could push it back a few more months. I studied her face. The perfect makeup. The designer outfit. Not a trace of someone who'd undergone major surgery just months ago. How was Vermont? I asked carefully. Oh, amazing. The retreat center was just what I needed. Funny, I heard someone mention the Maldives. Her face flickered for just a second before recovering. Oh, that. Yes, after Vermont, Mario surprised me with a quick trip. I didn't want to mention it because, well, I didn't want you to think I was spending frivolously while owing you money. Right, I said quietly. And how are the follow-up appointments going? Great. The doctor is really pleased with my progress. She checked her phone. Oh shoot, I need to go. Mario and I have dinner reservations at that new French place downtown. As she hurried out, I stood there, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, scrolling through Natalia's feed. There they were, photos of her lounging on pristine beaches, dining at luxury restaurants, shopping at high-end boutiques, all posted during her supposed recovery period. Everything okay? Dad appeared in the doorway. You look pale. Did Natalia ever mention anything to you about being sick? I asked. Before her trip to Boston? He frowned. No, why? Just curious, I replied, forcing a smile. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and started digging, checking flight records to Boston, researching the hospital she claimed to visit, cross-referencing dates with her social media posts. With each new piece of information, my heart sank further. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalia. Thanks for understanding about the payment delay, sis. You're the best. I stared at the message, remembering all the nights I'd worked late, all the sacrifices I'd made to save that money. My hands shook as I typed a response. No problem, what are sisters for? But in my mind, I was already forming a plan. If Natalia wanted to play games, she'd learn that her little sister wasn't as naive as she thought. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing, Evidence of fraud, Natalia Wade. The game was about to change, and this time, I'd be the one making the rules. The credit card statement in my hands confirmed what I'd suspected. I sat in my car outside Natalia's favorite boutique, watching her through the window as she tried on designer dresses. My sister, who claimed she couldn't afford to repay me because of medical expenses, was charging thousands of dollars like it was nothing. My phone rang. Mom, honey, are you coming to dinner tonight? Natalia's making some big announcement. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, watching Natalia hand over a credit card to the saleswoman. Hey, Mom. Random question. Did Natalia ever mention having any medical issues before her Boston trip? Medical issues? No, she was perfectly healthy. Why? Just curious. See you tonight. I pulled up the hospital website where Natalia claimed to have her surgery. After 3 calls and some carefully worded questions, I had my answer. They had no record of any patient matching her details during that time period. That evening, I arrived at our parents' house early. Dad was grilling in the backyard. You're quiet lately, he observed, flipping a burger. Everything okay? Dad, do you remember when you told me to always trust my gut? He set down the spatula. What's going on? Before I could answer, Natalia's voice rang out from the patio. Everyone! Mario and I have amazing news! We gathered around the table as Natalia stood, beaming. We're buying a house! We just put down a deposit on that beautiful Victorian on Maple Street. Mom gasped with delight. Mario looked proud. I felt sick. That's wonderful, Mom exclaimed. But isn't that place listed at over $1 million? We've been saving, Natalia said smoothly. And Mario got a bonus at work. Mario nodded, but something in his expression seemed uncertain. After dinner, I followed Natalia into the kitchen as she loaded the dishwasher. The Victorian on Maple? I asked. That's quite a purchase. I know. Isn't it exciting? Very, especially considering you still owe me $87,000. She straightened up, her smile faltering slightly. I told you, with all the medical expenses. Cut the crap, Natalia. I pulled out my phone. I have your credit card statements, the Maldives resort, the shopping sprees, the spa days. I called the hospital in Boston. They've never heard of you. The color drained from her face. You went through my personal information? You stole my life savings. Keep your voice down, she hissed. Look, I can explain. Please do. Explain how you lied about having a tumor. Explain how you took everything I worked for and blew it on vacations and designer clothes. I needed the money, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Mario's family expects certain things. I couldn't let them think I was common. I stared at her, incredulous. So you stole from me to impress your in-laws? Borrowed, she corrected. I was going to pay you back. With what money? The down payment you just made on $1 million house? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Her eyes welled up with tears. Mario's family is wealthy. I needed to keep up appearances. Does Mario know? About the money? About the fake surgery? Her silence was answer enough. I'm telling them, I said. All of them. Mom, Dad, Mario, everyone. You wouldn't dare. Her tears vanished, replaced by something cold. They'll never believe you. I'm the responsible one, remember? The successful one? You're just jealous because I'm getting everything you wanted. The perfect life, the perfect husband, the perfect house. The perfect lie, I corrected. And I have proof. She laughed, but I caught the flash of fear in her eyes. It's your word against mine. Who do you think they'll believe? The stable, successful daughter, or the one who can't even get her business off the ground? I walked out of the kitchen, my hands shaking. Mom and Dad were on the patio with Mario, discussing house renovation plans. They looked so happy, so proud of their daughter's success. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen. I opened a new folder and labeled it The Truth About Natalia. Inside, I saved screenshots of her credit card statements, vacation photos, and my recorded calls with the Boston hospital. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalia. I'm sorry about earlier. Let's talk tomorrow. Love you, sis. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Amazon and ordered a high-quality voice recorder. If Natalia thought she had me backed into a corner, she was about to learn that sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous. The game was changing, and this time, I had nothing left to lose. The voice recorder felt heavy in my pocket as I met Natalia for coffee the next week. She'd chosen an expensive cafe downtown, of course. I arrived early, positioned my phone on the table to record video, and waited. Sorry I'm late. She breezed in, designer handbag swinging. The real estate agent needed to discuss some details about the house. No problem. How's the closing process going? Amazing. Though we need a bit more for the down payment. She gave me her practiced puppy dog eyes. I was thinking, since you're already lending me money. I pressed the button on the recorder in my pocket. About that, I've been meaning to ask. How did your surgery go? You never really told me the details. She waved dismissively. It was successful, obviously. Which hospital was it again? Boston General. She sipped her latte. Why all these questions? Just curious. Must have been scary, finding out about the tumor. Her face softened with fake sympathy. It was terrifying. But thanks to you, I got the treatment I needed. What kind of tumor was it? She hesitated. Complicated one. The doctors used a lot of medical terms. Try me. Look. She set down her cup. Why are you interrogating me? Because I called Boston General. They have no record of you ever being there. The color drained from her face. I meant Boston Medical Center. Tried there too. Nothing. I leaned forward. Want to tell me the truth about where my money went? She glanced around the cafe, then lowered her voice. Fine. I needed the money for the house down payment. Happy now? So you lied about having cancer? Keep your voice down, she hissed. Look, I knew you'd never give me the money otherwise. You're so rigid about these things. Rigid? You mean responsible? Whatever. She rolled her eyes. The point is, it all worked out. I'll pay you back once Mario and I are settled. With what money? You just spent it all on a house you can't afford. God, you're so dramatic. She reached for her phone. Mario's family is loaded. Once we're married. Does Mario know you stole from me? Borrowed, she corrected sharply. And no, he doesn't need to know. Just like Mom and Dad don't need to know. I pulled out my phone, showing her the video recording. Want to try that again? Her eyes widened. You're recording me? That's illegal. Actually, in this state, single-party consent is perfectly legal. I checked. Delete that right now, she demanded, reaching for my phone. I pulled it away. No. In fact, I have lots of recordings. Our phone calls, your credit card statements, proof of your lies. What do you want? Her voice trembled. Money? Fine. I'll get it somehow. I want you to tell everyone the truth. Tonight. Family dinner. She laughed bitterly. Never going to happen. You release those recordings, and I'll tell everyone you're just jealous, that you're trying to ruin my life because you can't stand seeing me happy. Try it, I said calmly. See how that works out when I show Mario the proof that you stole money for his down payment. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I stood up. Tonight, family dinner. You tell them or I will. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with rapid-fire texts from Natalia. You're making a huge mistake. I'm your sister. Please don't do this. I'll make your life hell. I ignored them all and called Mom. Hey, about dinner tonight. Mind if I invite Mario? I think he should be there. Of course. The more the merrier. Back home, I organized my evidence, recordings, bank statements, hospital calls, everything. Then I sat down and wrote 2 emails. The first to Mario, with all the evidence attached, scheduled to send at 7 p.m. if Natalia didn't come clean. The second to Bruce, an investor who'd shown interest in my business plan months ago. Dear Bruce, I wrote, remember when I had to postpone our meeting due to a family emergency? I'm ready to talk now, and I have an even better business proposal, one born from personal experience with financial fraud. My phone buzzed again. Natalia. Fine, you win. I'll tell them tonight. But you're destroying this family. I replied with a single message. No, Natalia. You did that when you decided to steal from me. Tonight, everything would change. I just hoped our family was strong enough to survive the truth. The tension at our family dinner table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Natalia hadn't touched her food, instead pushing pasta around her plate while shooting me desperate glances. Mario sat beside her, completely oblivious to the storm about to break. So, about the house, Mom beamed. When's the closing date? 3 weeks, Mario answered proudly. The down payment's already taken care of. Dad raised his glass. To new beginnings. I watched Natalia's hand shake as she lifted her glass. The recorder in my pocket was running, capturing every moment. Actually, Natalia's voice cracked. I should. My phone buzzed. A text from her under the table. Please don't make me do this. I cleared my throat. Natalia has something important to share. It can wait, she said quickly. Let's just enjoy dinner. No, I said firmly. It can't wait. Mario touched her arm. Honey, what's wrong? Natalia burst into tears. Not the elegant, manipulative tears I'd seen before, but ugly, desperate sobs. I lied, she choked out. About everything. Mom set down her fork. What do you mean? The surgery. There was no surgery, no tumor. I took Jolie's money and spent it. The silence that followed was deafening. Mario's face drained of color. What money? Dad asked slowly. My life savings, I said. $87,000. But that's impossible, Mom protested. Natalia would never. I pulled out my phone, playing one of the recordings from the cafe. Natalia's voice filled the room. Fine. I needed the money for the house down payment. Happy now? Mario stood up so abruptly, his chair fell backward. You used stolen money for our house? Not stolen, Natalia pleaded. Borrowed. I was going to pay it back. With what? I asked. The money you spent on the Maldives? The designer clothes? The bracelet? The bracelet was from you? Mario's voice shook. You told me you bought it with your bonus. I can explain. Natalia reached for him, but he stepped back. My family's lawyers drew up the house contract, he said. Do you have any idea what this could do to my reputation? To my career? Dad's hands were clenched into fists. All those times you came over, talking about your recovery. Daddy, please! Don't! He stood up. Don't you dare try to manipulate us. Not anymore. Mom was crying silently. Why, Natalia? We raised you better than this. I just wanted... Natalia looked around desperately. I wanted everything to be perfect. Mario's family has such high expectations and My family values honesty, Mario cut in. Not theft and lies. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Natalia ran after him. Mario, wait! We can fix this! Fix it! He turned, his face hard. You stole from your sister. You lied to everyone. The house, the lifestyle, everything was built on lies. There's no fixing that. The door slammed behind him. Natalia crumpled to the floor, sobbing. Get up! Dad said coldly. You don't get to play the victim here. My phone buzzed. An email from Bruce. Interesting proposal. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss. The money needs to be paid back, Dad continued. Every penny. Ha! I don't have it, Natalia whispered. Then you'll sell everything you bought with it, Mom said, her voice stronger now. The bags, the jewelry, everything. And the house? I asked. There won't be a house, Natalia said bitterly. Mario will make sure of that. Good, Dad nodded. It's a start. Natalia turned to me, eyes pleading. I'm sorry, I never meant... Save it, I stood up. I trusted you. We all did. And you threw it away for what? To impress people you barely know? What happens now? Mom asked quietly. Now, I said, gathering my things. I have a business meeting tomorrow, and Natalia has a lot of luxury items to sell. As I walked to my car, Natalia followed me. You've ruined everything, she accused. No, I turned to face her. You did that all by yourself. The funny thing is, If you'd just asked for help, been honest about wanting to impress Mario's family, I probably would have helped you find a way. But you chose lies and manipulation. Ah, I really am sorry, she whispered. I know, I replied, but sorry doesn't pay back $87,000. I drove away, leaving her standing in our parents' driveway. My phone was already filling with messages from family members, but for the first time in months, I felt lighter. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Bruce about my business plan. Tonight, the truth was finally out. Sometimes, rock bottom is where you find your strength. My meeting with Bruce went better than I could have imagined. We sat in his downtown office overlooking the city as I pitched my new business concept. A consulting firm specializing in family financial fraud? He leaned forward, intrigued. Born from personal experience, I take it? Unfortunately, yes. I pulled out my laptop, but it made me realize how many people face similar situations. The emotional manipulation, the complex web of lies, the shame that keeps victims quiet. And you have market research? I showed him the statistics. Family financial fraud is severely underreported. People need someone who understands both the emotional and legal aspects. I'm in, he said, surprising me with his quick decision. But I want to see how you handle your own situation first. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Mom calling. Natalia's having a meltdown, she said when I answered. Mario's family is hosting an engagement party this weekend, and she's threatening to expose them if Mario doesn't take her back. Put her on the phone. Jolie? Natalia's voice was frantic. You have to help me. Mario's family is spreading rumors that I'm a gold digger. They're trying to ruin me. You mean they're telling the truth? I'll tell everyone about the recordings, she threatened. How you secretly taped me. How you set me up. Bruce raised an eyebrow as I put the phone on speaker. Go ahead, I replied calmly. Show everyone how you admitted to stealing my money. I'm sure that'll help your case. She hung up. Bruce nodded approvingly. You're handling this well, he said. Most people let emotions cloud their judgment. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mario. Can we meet? There's something you should know. An hour later, I sat across from Mario at a quiet cafe. Natalia's been calling my family nonstop, he said, looking exhausted. Making threats, demanding money. They're considering legal action. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. That's not all. He pulled out his phone. She sent me this last night. The text read, If you don't take me back, I'll tell everyone Jolie seduced you. That's why she exposed me. Jealousy. She's desperate, I said. And she's always been good at turning victims into villains. My family's lawyers want to press charges, he continued, but I wanted to talk to you first. She's still your sister. Before I could respond, the cafe door burst open. Natalia stormed in, her face twisted with rage. Having a cozy little meeting? She spat. I knew it! You two are together. Other customers turned to stare as she continued her tirade. Natalia, Mario's voice was firm. Stop this, now. Oh, or what? She laughed hysterically. You'll call your fancy lawyers? Go ahead. I'll tell everyone how you two betrayed me. I stood up slowly. Is that really your plan? More lies? You took everything from me. No. I pulled out my phone, recording again. You took everything from yourself, and now you're making it worse. Please, Mario added. Get help, Natalia. Real help. She grabbed my coffee cup and threw it against the wall. Help! I don't need help. I need my life back. The cafe manager approached. Ma'am, I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Natalia shouted. Ask my sister about the illegal recordings. Ask Mario about... Two police officers entered the cafe. One glanced at the broken cup and coffee-stained wall. Is there a problem here? Yes, I said quietly. My sister is harassing us and destroying property. That's not true, Natalia protested. They're the ones. We have security footage, the manager interrupted, and multiple witnesses. As the officers led Natalia away, she turned back to me. You'll regret this. All of it. Mario sighed heavily. I'll talk to my lawyers. Maybe we can work something out if she agrees to counseling. My phone buzzed. A text from Bruce. Watching you handle this situation has convinced me. Let's draw up the investment papers tomorrow. I looked at Mario. Thank you for being willing to help her, even after everything. We all make mistakes, he said. The question is whether we learn from them. Outside, I watched the police car drive away with my sister in the back seat. My phone was already ringing. Mom, Dad, probably more family members about to learn what happened. The truth about Natalia was finally catching up with her. But somehow, watching her self-destruct didn't feel like victory anymore. It felt like watching a desperate person dig their own grave deeper and deeper. Sometimes karma doesn't need our help. It just needs us to step back and let it do its work. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as I sat across from Natalia in the visitation room. After spending the night in jail, her designer outfit was wrinkled, her makeup smeared. Mom and Dad won't bail me out, she said quietly. Can you blame them? She stared at her hands. Mario's family is pressing charges, criminal mischief, harassment, attempted fraud with the house down payment. I know. Their lawyer called me this morning. Are you enjoying this? Her voice cracked. Watching me lose everything? Before I could answer, the door opened. Bruce walked in, followed by Mario and his lawyer. What's happening? Natalia asked, suddenly alert. Mario's lawyer placed a document on the table. We're prepared to drop the charges under certain conditions. What conditions? She asked suspiciously. First, Bruce began, you agree to full financial restitution to Jolie. We've calculated the total, including interest. Second, Mario added, you enter a comprehensive therapy program. And third, I said, you sign a legal agreement admitting to everything. No more lies, no more threats, no more manipulation. Natalia laughed bitterly. So I have to humiliate myself completely? No, I leaned forward. You have to take responsibility for once in your life. What's the alternative? She challenged. Mario's lawyer cleared his throat. Multiple criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and potential jail time. The room fell silent as Natalia absorbed this. Finally, she whispered, How am I supposed to pay back the money? I spent it all. That's where I come in, Bruce said. Jolie's new business venture needs a case study. Your story, if you're willing to share it honestly, could help others avoid similar situations. You want to use me as an example? Her eyes widened. Turn my mistakes into some kind of cautionary tale? I want to turn your mistakes into something meaningful, I corrected. Help other families avoid what we went through. And the therapy? Is non-negotiable, Mario said firmly. What you did, it wasn't just about money. You need help, Natalia. She started to cry, but for the first time, I saw real tears, not manipulative ones. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she sobbed. I wanted to be special, important. The perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée. You were already special, I said softly. You were my sister. That was enough. The door opened again. Mom and Dad walked in, their faces tired but determined. We're here to help you sign the papers, Dad said. But this is your last chance, Natalia. Mom touched her shoulder. We love you, but we won't enable you anymore. Natalia looked around the room. At Mario, who she'd tried to impress with lies. At Bruce, who was offering her a chance at redemption. At our parents, whose trust she'd shattered. And finally at me, the sister she'd betrayed. Okay, she whispered. I'll sign. As she worked through the documents with the lawyer, Bruce pulled me aside. Your business plan just got stronger, he said. Real stories, real solutions. We'll help families navigate these exact situations. My phone buzzed. A message from Emery. Heard what happened. Can't believe Natalia did this. Let me know if you need anything. The therapy center can take her next week, Mario said, joining us. It's a 3-month program. Will you ever forgive her? I asked him quietly. He shook his head. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, but that doesn't mean we can't help her build new ones. Natalia finished signing and looked up, her face tear-stained but calmer. What happens now? She asked. Now, I said, you get help, real help. And when you're ready, you help us prevent others from making the same choices. And us? She gestured between us. Will we ever be okay? That depends on you, I replied honestly, on whether this change is real or just another performance. As we left the police station, reporters were waiting outside. Natalia instinctively reached for her hair, her makeup, always conscious of appearances. Don't, I said. For once, just be real. She dropped her hands and faced the cameras, shoulders squared. I have a statement to make, she began, her voice shaking but clear. About truth, consequences, and the price of living a lie. I watched my sister finally tell the truth, and for the first time in months, I felt hope. Not for the money, not for my business, but for the possibility that sometimes rock bottom is where we find our true selves. Bruce smiled. Now that's a story worth telling. Indeed it was. And it was just the beginning. The conference room fell silent as Natalia finished her speech. She stood at the podium, hands steady, voice clear, sharing her story with a room full of financial fraud victims and their families. I chose lies over love, she concluded, and it cost me everything. But through honesty and hard work, I've repaid more than just money. I've repaid trust. From my seat beside Bruce, I watched the audience react. Some were crying, others nodding in recognition. Our new consulting firm's first major symposium was a success. During the break, a young woman approached me. Your sister's story. It's exactly what happened with my brother. I didn't know who to turn to. That's why we're here. I handed her my card. To help families heal from financial betrayal. Bruce joined us, beaming. 3 more investment offers today. Your company's growing faster than expected. Our company, I corrected, watching Natalia speak with another group of attendees. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Proud of both my girls. Different paths, same destination. Truth. Natalia walked over, looking professional in her modest business suit, a far cry from her former designer wardrobe. Ready for the workshop session? She asked. Almost. Mario's group is up first. She nodded, her expression thoughtful. How is he? Getting married next month. Sarah's good for him. Good. He deserves happiness. She straightened her jacket. I've been meaning to tell you, I sold the last designer bag yesterday. The restitution fund is almost complete. I know. Bruce showed me the numbers. A commotion near the entrance caught our attention. Dad walked in, carrying boxes of materials for the afternoon session. Need help? I called out. Your old man's still strong enough to carry some boxes, he chuckled, but accepted Natalia's offer to help. I watched them work together, remembering how strained things had been during Natalia's therapy. The weekly family sessions, the painful confessions, the slow rebuilding of trust. Ms. Wade? An elderly man approached. My daughter emptied my retirement account. Your sister's story gives me hope that maybe... Let's talk. Natalia joined us, her expertise in manipulation now used to help others recognize the signs. There's always a path forward. The afternoon workshops began. I led a session on financial boundaries, while Natalia handled one on recognizing emotional manipulation. Through the glass walls, I could see her engaging with participants, sharing insights from both sides of the experience. During the closing session, Bruce announced our expansion plans. Thanks to the Wade sisters, we're opening 3 new offices. Their story has become a roadmap for families healing from financial betrayal. Mom slipped into the seat beside me. Remember when you thought your savings were gone forever? Now they're helping save others, I smiled. After the symposium, our family gathered at Dad's favorite diner, a humble change from the expensive restaurants Natalia once insisted on. I have news, Natalia said, stirring her coffee. I've been offered a position with the therapy center. They want me to counsel families dealing with financial fraud. Are you ready for that? Dad asked carefully. I think so. My therapist thinks it's a good next step. Speaking of next steps, Bruce interrupted, joining our table. The investment committee approved your proposal, Jolie. We're launching the prevention program in schools next month. Prevention program? Mom asked. Teaching young people about financial manipulation and family dynamics, I explained. Natalia's helping develop the curriculum. From cautionary tale to cautionary teacher, Natalia said softly. Who would have thought? The diner's door chimed. Mario walked in with Sarah, spotting our group. Sorry to interrupt, he said. Just wanted to drop off the workshop evaluations. Natalia stood. Sarah, could we talk privately? There's something I've been wanting to say. They stepped aside. We watched as Natalia spoke earnestly, probably offering the genuine apology she'd worked on in therapy. Sarah nodded, her expression softening. Full circle, Dad observed. My phone buzzed. Another client request. As I read it, I realized something profound. Natalia's betrayal hadn't just cost me money. It had given me purpose. Our pain had become a platform to help others. Ready for tomorrow's client meetings? Natalia asked, returning to the table. Ready, I confirmed. Think they'll believe that my biggest business inspiration came from my own sister stealing my life savings? Truth is stranger than fiction, Bruce chuckled. And more powerful, Natalia added quietly. We stayed late at the diner, planning tomorrow's meetings, sharing stories, rebuilding bonds. The trust between us wasn't blind anymore. It was earned, tested, and stronger for having been broken. Sometimes the best endings don't erase the past. They transform it into something meaningful. Our story wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about redemption, purpose, and the unexpected ways life teaches us its most valuable lessons.
I've always lived by the code of silence. No flaunting, no arrogance, just silent gratitude for the hand I'd been dealt. When I married Jamie, I was happy and content, but his mother, oh boy, she was something else. A whirlwind of skepticism and bitterness, she accused me of being a gold digger, only after Jamie's wealth, which, honestly, wasn't that much to begin with. Little did she know about my $1,000,000 secret. We met at a cozy little coffee shop. He, with his warm smile and nervous energy, me, buried in my books and black coffee. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he asked, flashing a bashful smile. I'm Jamie. That's how it all began. An innocent offer transforming into a beautiful journey. He proposed 2 years later, in the same coffee shop, with the same bashful smile. I said yes with tears in my eyes, and we danced under the stars, feeling like the only people in the world. However, our happiness had a shadow. Jamie's mother, Mrs. Thompson, never liked me. She was convinced I was after his money, whispering snide comments whenever she thought I couldn't hear, raising her eyebrows at our love. I've seen your kind before, preying on unsuspecting kind souls, she'd hiss. One day, after an awkward family dinner, I'd had enough. Jamie, I said with more firmness than I felt, I can't keep dealing with your mother's accusations and snide remarks. Jamie, ever the pacifist, would just sigh, saying, she's old, set in her ways, just ignore her. Just ignore her? I would think to myself. She's making my life miserable. But I loved Jamie too much to let his mother get in between us. So I decided to have a little fun, a little revenge to get back at her for her unjust accusations. It was time Mrs. Thompson knew she wasn't the only one who could play games. My secret, you ask? I was a self-made millionaire. A successful software engineer, I had developed a program during college, which I sold for a hefty sum. The money was in a separate account, a detail I chose not to share with Jamie or his family, wanting to be loved for who I was, not for my bank balance. So I hatched a plan. I decided to act like the gold digger Mrs. Thompson accused me of being. I splurged on lavish gifts, extravagant holidays, and five-star restaurants, all on Jamie's moderate salary. We were living the high life, or so it seemed. Jamie was confused but delighted, thinking we were spending my savings. Mrs. Thompson's sneers grew more pronounced, her comments more acidic. "I knew it! She's spending all your money!" she would sneer at Jamie. "You'll be left with nothing, mark my words." Jamie was bewildered, worried, but I would always reassure him, "Don't worry, I have it all under control." All the while, I secretly replaced every penny spent from my own account, ensuring Jamie's financial security was never compromised. Mrs. Thompson grew more furious, her accusations more frequent. Her suspicions were seemingly confirmed, and she was more than happy to tell the whole world about her gold-digging daughter-in-law. One day, she sat us down, her face a mask of seriousness, and said, "Jamie, I cannot sit back and watch her ruin you. I am cutting you off. You will not receive a penny more from me. Let's see how she stays with you when the money runs out." Jamie was a mix of confusion, anger, and embarrassment, his face turning various shades of red. "Mom, how can you say such things?" he stammered. "She loves me." "Oh, really?" she replied, eyebrows raised. "Let's see how long she stays when the money is gone." The stage was set. My seemingly frivolous spending continued, and Jamie's anxiety was reaching a peak. "What if we run out of money? What will we do?" he'd whisper at night, his voice laced with worry. "Trust me," I would say, squeezing his hand. "Everything will be all right." My secret was still safe, and the time to reveal it was drawing closer. Mrs. Thompson was in for the shock of her life. I could hardly wait. I spent days meticulously planning the grand reveal, my heart racing every time I thought about the look on Mrs. Thompson's face when she would find out the truth. "She thinks she can ruin my happiness?" I'd think to myself. "Let's see who has the last laugh." I went on, more audacious in my spending, more theatrical in my display of wealth. Expensive gifts for Jamie, designer dresses, and ostentatious parties. I spared no expense in portraying the image of the reckless spender, the gold digger Mrs. Thompson believed me to be. One evening, as Jamie and I hosted a lavish party, Mrs. Thompson confronted me, her face red with anger. "You are ruining my son, you worthless gold digger," she hissed, her voice quivering with rage. I smiled sweetly, responding with feigned innocence. "I'm just enjoying the wealth your son provides me. Isn't that what you've been saying all along?" The fire in her eyes intensified, but she said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line. Poor Jamie was caught in the middle, torn between the love for his mother and his love for me. "I can't take it anymore," he confessed one night, tears streaming down his face. "I can't be in the middle, torn between the two most important women in my life." That was the turning point. Seeing him so broken, so helpless, I knew it was time to put an end to this game. "Jamie," I said, my voice soft, "it's time you knew the truth." "What truth?" he asked, wiping away his tears, his eyes red and swollen. "The truth about my wealth," I replied, reaching out to hold his hand. "I am a millionaire, Jamie. I've been replacing every penny we've spent, ensuring you never lose anything." He stared at me, disbelief etched across his face. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to be loved for me, not my wealth," I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. "I wanted someone who loved Emma, the person, not Emma, the millionaire." Jamie hugged me tight, whispering, "I love you, Emma, with or without your money." With Jamie now in on my secret, we decided to have one final act, the grand reveal, something Mrs. Thompson would never forget. We decided to throw a lavish banquet, inviting all our friends and family. Mrs. Thompson was, of course, the guest of honor. On the day of the banquet, the air was charged with anticipation. I wore my most extravagant dress, diamonds glittering at my throat. Jamie looked handsome in his suite, his eyes sparkling with mischief. As we stood at the podium, the room silent in anticipation, Jamie began. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered you all here for a special announcement. All eyes were on us, the room buzzing with whispers. Mrs. Thompson sat in the front row, her eyes glaring daggers at me. Finally, the day of reckoning has arrived, she must have thought, believing her son was about to announce his separation from the gold digger. Taking a deep breath, I spoke up. I have been accused of being a gold digger, of being with Jamie only for his wealth. The whispers grew louder, the air more tense. Jamie squeezed my hand, whispering, "It's time." My heart raced as I prepared to drop the bombshell, to expose my million-dollar secret to the world, to finally have my revenge on Mrs. Thompson. The air was heavy with anticipation, the silence deafening as I began to speak. But today, I continued, my voice steady despite the racing heartbeat, I want to reveal a truth that has been hidden since the day Jamie and I met. I could feel the air thicken with curiosity, eyes wide and expectant. I am not the gold digger as I've been so vehemently accused of being, I stated, locking eyes with Mrs. Thompson, whose face was now a palette of confusion and surprise. In fact, I paused, relishing the moment, I am a self-made millionaire. My wealth exceeds that of the Thompson family. A gasp rippled through the room, a cacophony of whispers following. Mrs. Thompson's face went from red to white, shock and disbelief mingling in her eyes. I have been playing along, acting the part of the frivolous spender, the gold digger, I continued, because I wanted to expose the prejudice, the judgment, the condescension that came my way, primarily from Mrs. Thompson. Jamie stood by me, his hand squeezing mine, his face a mix of pride and love. He addressed the crowd. I am ashamed that my own mother could think so lowly of the woman I love. Emma is a remarkable woman, self-made and successful, yet she chose to be with me, to share her life with me. I could see Mrs. Thompson squirming in her seat, her face a mask of humiliation and regret. I had dreamt of this moment, rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head, but the satisfaction was sweeter than I had ever imagined. This was it, I thought to myself. The truth is out, and the tables have turned. Mrs. Thompson stood up abruptly, her voice quivering. Jamie, is this true? Emma, is this some sort of sick joke? No, Mother, Jamie replied sternly. It's the truth, a truth that Emma kept hidden to protect our relationship, to protect me. And me? Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice breaking. You never gave her a chance, Jamie retorted, his voice laced with disappointment. You judged her, accused her, tried to turn me against her. Mrs. Thompson faltered, at a loss for words. The room was buzzing, a mix of shock, admiration, and curiosity. Friends and family came forward, congratulating us, expressing their astonishment at the revelation. Questions and congratulations poured in, but my eyes were on Mrs. Thompson, who sat there, her head bowed, a picture of defeat and regret. I walked over to her, my heart heavy with mixed emotions. Mrs. Thompson, I began, my voice soft. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be accepted for who I am, not for my wealth or lack thereof. She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. I am sorry, Emma. I was wrong about you. Her voice broke, the words barely a whisper. It was a moment of triumph, but it was also a moment of reconciliation. I had proven my point, had my revenge, but it was time to mend fences, to build a relationship that had been tarnished by prejudice and accusations. I hope we can start anew, Mrs. Thompson, I said, extending my hand towards her. Not as enemies, but as family. She took my hand, her grip firm, her eyes filled with tears. I would like that very much, Emma. The festivities continued, laughter and joy enveloping the room. But my mind was elsewhere. The revelation had sent shockwaves through the assembly, leaving a mix of admiration and awkwardness in its wake. I found myself surrounded by a throng of well-wishers, their praises and congratulations echoing in my ears. But my thoughts were with Mrs. Thompson, with the newfound truce, the possibility of a fresh start. As the night wound down, Jamie and I stole a quiet moment together, away from the prying eyes and incessant chatter. He wrapped his arms around me, his eyes searching mine. Emma, I am so proud of you, but I can't help but feel a pang of guilt. Guilty? Why? I questioned, my eyebrows knitted in confusion. I never stood up for you, never defended you against my mother's accusations. I let her tarnish your image, question your intentions, he confessed, his voice laden with remorse. You did what you thought was right, Jamie, I reassured him, my hand gently caressing his cheek. You tried to keep the peace, maintain a balance between the two most important women in your life. It doesn't justify my silence, my complacency, he argued, his gaze unwavering. I should have been your pillar, your defender. You were my strength, my support, I reminded him, my voice tinged with emotion. You believed in me, trusted me, and loved me unconditionally. That's all I ever needed. He pulled me closer, his lips meeting mine in a tender kiss, a silent promise of love and commitment. But reality soon intruded, pulling us back to the whirlwind of celebrations, to the myriad questions and curious glances. How did you amass such wealth? Why did you hide your fortune? The queries were relentless, the fascination unabated. I made smart investments, I replied, maintaining a facade of nonchalance. I had the good fortune of having a sharp mind for business and finance. But why hide it? Persisted an aunt, her eyes wide with intrigue. I didn't want it to define me, I answered, my voice firm. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for my bank balance. The respect in their eyes was evident, the admiration palpable. Mrs. Thompson, meanwhile, watched from afar, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions. I could see the regret in her eyes, the realization of her misguided judgments, her misplaced accusations. I never meant to demean her, I thought, my heart aching for the pain I had caused. I just wanted her to see me, the real me, without the shadow of wealth and privilege. As the celebrations drew to a close and the guests started to depart, a sense of tranquility settled over me. The storm had passed, leaving behind a rainbow of possibilities, a horizon of new beginnings. Mrs. Thompson approached us, her steps hesitant, her eyes moist. Emma, Jamie, can we talk? She requested, her voice laced with vulnerability. We sat down, the silence thick with unsaid words, unvoiced emotions. Emma, I want to apologize, she began, her voice trembling. I was wrong, so horribly wrong about you. I judged you, berated you, all based on my own prejudices and insecurities, she continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. I let my fear of losing my son cloud my judgment, taint my perception. I am sorry, Emma, she apologized, her gaze locked onto mine, pleading for forgiveness. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive an old woman's foolishness. I have already forgiven you, Mrs. Thompson, I replied, my hand reaching out to hold hers. I only hope we can move past this, build a relationship based on trust and respect. I would like that, Emma, she responded, her grip tightening on my hand. I would like to get to know the remarkable woman my son has chosen to spend his life with. The journey had been long, the road fraught with obstacles and heartache, But the destination was worth every step, every tear. I had sought revenge, yearned for vindication. But in the end, I found something much more valuable, much more enduring: acceptance, understanding, and the promise of a new beginning. The air the next day was different, lighter, like the weight of years of misunderstandings and accusations had been lifted. The sun seemed to shine a little brighter, the birds sang a little sweeter, and the world felt anew, ripe with the promise of redemption. As Jamie and I walked through the garden, hand in hand, the atmosphere was tinged with a newfound sense of harmony, a symbiosis of souls. "Emma, do you think my mother will change?" Jamie pondered, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "I believe people can change," I mused, my gaze fixed on the horizon, especially when they realize the error of their ways. A flicker of hope danced in Jamie's eyes, a silent prayer for reconciliation, for healing. "I hope we can become a family, a real family," he whispered, his voice tinged with longing. "I hope so too," I agreed, squeezing his hand reassuringly. "But it will take time, effort, and a lot of patience." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The path to reconciliation was slow, laden with hurdles and setbacks. But the commitment was unwavering, the resolve unbroken. Mrs. Thompson was genuinely trying to mend her ways, to build bridges and heal wounds. We spent more time together, learned about each other, shared stories and experiences. I saw the vulnerability behind her stern facade, the fear of loneliness, of abandonment. She saw my love for Jamie, my dreams and aspirations, the essence of who I am. "I am starting to understand why Jamie loves you so much," Mrs. Thompson confided one day, a smile playing on her lips. "You are a remarkable young woman, Emma." "And I am starting to see the loving, caring mother behind the formidable matriarch," I replied, my heart swelling with hope. There were awkward moments, uncomfortable silences, but the ice was breaking, the walls crumbling. We were learning to see each other not as adversaries, but as allies, as family. "I never thought I'd say this, but I am glad you are a part of our lives, Emma," Mrs. Thompson admitted one evening, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "I am glad to be here, to be a part of this family," I responded, a warmth spreading through my soul. Jamie watched the unfolding camaraderie with a mixture of disbelief and joy, his heart dancing to the rhythm of newfound connections, of love and acceptance. "I never thought I'd see the day when you two would sit together, laugh together," he marveled, his eyes shining with happiness. "It's a testament to the power of love, of forgiveness," I said, my hand entwined with his. "I am proud of you both," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me the strength of the human spirit, the capacity for change and growth." And as we sat there, under the canopy of the twinkling stars, a sense of peace enveloped us, a feeling of belonging. The journey had been tumultuous, the battles intense, but the victory was sweet, the reward priceless. I set out to teach her a lesson, to make her realize the error of her ways, I reflected, my mind wandering back to the days of pain and strife. But in the process, I learned about the power of compassion, of understanding. I wanted revenge. I wanted justice, I thought, the echoes of past animosities resonating in my soul. But I found something much more profound, much more meaningful: love, family, and the promise of a better tomorrow. I didn't just gain a husband, I gained a family, I mused, my heart brimming with gratitude. And in the process, I discovered the essence of true wealth, the richness of the human spirit. And as the curtain fell on this chapter of our lives, a new one awaited, full of possibilities and adventures, of love and laughter. The journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace it, to savor every moment, every emotion.
All right, friends, buckle up because this is the story of how I discovered my wife's secret girlfriend getaways were anything but innocent. It all started when I stumbled upon a revelation that would leave you scratching your heads and reaching for your pitchforks. So picture this. My wife Emily and I have been married for 5 blissful years. Or so I thought. We met by chance. I was sitting in a cozy little cafe during my lunch break, desperately trying to avoid the pile of work waiting for me back at the office. As I sipped on my cappuccino, I couldn't help but notice a woman sitting alone at a nearby table. She had this captivating smile that could light up a room. Feeling a surge of courage, I decided to make my move. I casually strolled over and asked if the seat across from her was taken. She looked up, slightly surprised, and gestured for me to sit down. Score. We started chatting, and it turned out we had a lot in common. We both hated Mondays, loved cheesy movies, and had an unhealthy obsession with cats. It was like we were 2 peas in a pod. As our conversation flowed effortlessly, I couldn't help but be drawn to her infectious laughter. It was like music to my ears, drowning out the noise of the cafe. We exchanged stories and jokes, each one funnier than the last. It felt like we were in our own little comedy club. Time flew by, and before we knew it, our lunch breaks were coming to an end. Reluctantly, we exchanged numbers and promised to meet up again soon. As I walked back to the office, a goofy grin plastered on my face, I couldn't help but feel like I had just stumbled upon something truly special. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Our casual lunchtime encounter had blossomed into a full-blown romance. We explored new restaurants together, went on weekend getaways, and even survived a disastrous attempt at cooking a fancy dinner together. Let's just say the fire alarm got quite the workout. Naturally, after all this, we got married. Emily's job as an executive at a tech firm often left her stressed and in need of some girl time, as she put it. I didn't mind at all, in fact, I encouraged it. Everyone needs a break, right? These getaways happened every few months, and I was always cool with it. Her so-called girlfriends would rent a fancy cabin, hit the spa, and just relax. Emily would return refreshed, and our relationship benefited from it. Or so I believed. One sunny Saturday, I decided to surprise her at her favorite spa retreat, a place called Serene Haven. I had a bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates in hand, ready to surprise my hard-working wife. Little did I know, the real surprise was waiting for me. As I walked into the reception area of Serene Haven, I couldn't help but admire the posh surroundings. The marble floors, the soothing waterfall in the corner, and the impeccable service made it clear why Emily loved this place. I approached the receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, to inquire about Emily's whereabouts. "Hey there," I said with a smile. "I'm looking for my wife, Emily. She's here with her friends for a weekend getaway." Sarah looked up from her computer screen and gave me a polite smile. "Sure. Let me check for you. Can you please provide her last name?" "Of course, it's Anderson." Sarah's fingers danced across the keyboard, her eyebrows furrowing slightly. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't have any record of an Emily Anderson staying here this weekend." My heart sank. I thought there must be some mistake. "Are you sure? She comes here regularly with her friends for these spa weekends." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then leaned in a bit closer, as if sharing a secret. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but there is an Emily who has been a frequent guest here. However, she always checks in alone, and she's registered under a different last name." I blinked, trying to process this information. "A different last name? Are you saying she's using a fake name?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. She goes by Emily Mitchell. But please don't mention I told you this. We value our guests' privacy." My mind was racing. Why would Emily use a fake name? And why was she coming here alone when she always claimed to be with her girlfriends? "I won't say a word," I assured her, my voice trembling. As I left the spa, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Emily had some explaining to do, and I was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. Little did I know that my journey for the truth would lead me down a path of unexpected twists and turns. After my jaw hit the floor at the hotel receptionist's revelation, I needed to do some major sleuthing. If my wife Emily was sneaking around behind my back, I needed to know the full extent of her devious plan. Revenge, after all, required precise information. I slipped out of the hotel, leaving the poor receptionist baffled and bewildered. It was clear that Emily wasn't here for a girls' weekend, at least not in the traditional sense. I couldn't just confront her without all the facts, though. I needed to gather evidence like a seasoned detective. Back at home, I started my covert operation. I dusted off my old laptop, logged into my trusty social media accounts, and fired up my amateur detective skills. First stop, Emily's Facebook profile. I scrolled through her posts, looking for any suspicious activity. That's when I found it, a group chat with her so-called girlfriends. The conversation was filled with emojis, inside jokes, and laugh-out-loud anecdotes about their wild weekend adventures. But it was all a facade. The timestamps on the messages told a different story. Emily had been typing away furiously during the time she was supposedly out with her friends. My heart sank as I read messages like, "I can't believe we're getting away with this," and "He'll never suspect a thing." It was crystal clear that my wife was orchestrating an elaborate ruse, and her friends were in on it. But the burning question remained. What was the purpose of this charade? Why would she go to such lengths to deceive me? I needed more information. I knew I couldn't tackle this mission alone, so I reached out to my trusty sidekick and best friend, Mike. He was a tech whiz and had a knack for digging up digital dirt. We met up at our favorite coffee shop, and I spilled the beans on the bizarre situation. "Mike, you won't believe what's happening," I whispered, leaning in closer as if we were in some spy thriller. I recounted the entire hotel receptionist saga and showed him the incriminating chat messages. Mike's eyes widened as he absorbed the details. "This is some next-level deception, buddy," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "But we can get to the bottom of this. We just need to be one step ahead of her." We hatched a plan to set up a fake business trip of my own, complete with fabricated messages and meetings. If Emily thought she could outwit me, she had another thing coming. It was time to turn the tables and unleash my own web of deceit. Revenge was a dish best served cold, and I was about to make it ice cold. As I typed out fake emails and sent bogus text messages to my unsuspecting wife, I couldn't help but smirk. Emily had underestimated me, but I was about to show her that two could play this game. Little did she know, the husband she thought she knew was about to become her worst nightmare. The stage was set, and my plan was in motion. I embarked on my so-called business trip, leaving Emily behind with a web of deceit so intricate, even I had trouble keeping track of it all. The key to my revenge lay in convincing her that I was away for an extended period, far from her prying eyes. I checked into a nearby hotel and sent her occasional messages about my meetings and work dinners. Meanwhile, Mike and I continued our covert operation, gathering more evidence about Emily's shady activities. We started by following her every move, discreetly of course. Mike used his tech wizardry to install a tracking app on her phone without her knowledge. We watched in real time as she met up with her supposed girlfriends, all while I was miles away, attending my fabricated business meetings. It was during one of these clandestine stakeouts that we stumbled upon something that sent shivers down my spine. Emily and her friends weren't just going for spa days and brunches. No, they were headed to a casino, and it wasn't for the slot machines. I watched as Emily entered the lavish establishment with a group of women, dressed to the nines. The glitzy casino was a far cry from the innocent girls' weekend she had portrayed it as. This wasn't about spending quality time with friends. It was about indulging in a secret life of extravagance and thrill-seeking. As I observed her at the blackjack table, my anger grew. Her fingers tapped nervously on the table, beating out a simple melody. But now it didn't seem to me as cute as it was at the time of our acquaintance. I felt all her emotions. Taking a seat at the blackjack table, Emily exuded confidence, channeling their inner James Bond. She were dealt a pair of aces, causing their heart to skip a beat. This was her moment to shine, or so she thought. Filled with excitement, Emily made the impulsive decision to go all in, adopting the mantra of, "You only live once." The dealer raised an eyebrow at this bold move, but proceeded nonetheless. The cards were dealt, and a wide grin spread across her face. However, her joy was short-lived as the dealer revealed a blackjack. Panic and horror washed over her like a tidal wave. Flushed with embarrassment, Emily could feel the weight of the entire casino's gaze upon them. Her luck had quickly evaporated, leaving them feeling anything but fortunate. To add insult to injury, the subsequent rounds proved to be just as disastrous. Lady Luck had abandoned her completely. Every time they hit, they went bust. Every time she stood, the dealer miraculously pulled out a winning hand. It seemed as though the cards themselves held a personal grudge against Emily. I kept watching her crash. Emily was gambling away our hard-earned money, all the while thinking she had pulled the wool over my eyes. It was a betrayal that cut deep. I couldn't help but think back to the hotel receptionist's words. "Your wife is quite the gambler," she had said with a knowing smile. It all made sense now. Emily had been using these supposed weekend getaways as a cover for her reckless gambling habit, and her friends were her enablers. Mike and I decided to dig deeper into her financial activities. We accessed her bank statements, and what we found was shocking. Large sums of money had been withdrawn from our joint account and transferred to an unknown source. It was as if Emily was trying to hide her gambling losses by siphoning off our shared funds. It was time to confront her, but not before I had gathered enough evidence to ensure she couldn't weasel her way out of this one. Revenge was no longer just a desire, it was a necessity. My marriage hung in the balance, and I wasn't about to let her deception tear us apart. Armed with the damning evidence we had collected, I waited for Emily's return from her latest girls' weekend. Little did she know that the tables had turned, and the game was no longer in her favor. It was time for the ultimate showdown, and I was prepared to reveal the extent of her deceit. As I watched her approach our front door, a rush of emotions washed over me. This was the moment of truth, and I was determined to make her face the consequences of her actions. Revenge, it seemed, was about to take center stage in our marriage. The door swung open, and there she stood, looking like she had just returned from another one of her innocent getaways. Emily's face lit up with a feigned smile as she saw me waiting for her. Little did she know that her carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. "Hey, sweetheart," she greeted me, trying to hug me as if nothing was amiss. I sidestepped her embrace, my anger bubbling just below the surface. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and unyielding. I motioned for her to step inside, and as she did, I closed the door behind her, sealing her fate. Emily's expression shifted from cheerful to uneasy as she sensed the seriousness of the situation. She glanced around, perhaps expecting an intervention from one of her supposed girlfriends or a hidden camera crew. But there was no escape from the truth this time. I gestured for her to sit down in the living room, a room that had witnessed countless moments of joy and intimacy in our marriage. Today, it would bear witness to something entirely different. I took a deep breath and began to lay out the evidence before her. Bank statements, photos of her at the casino, and the GPS logs from her phone tracking her every move during her weekend getaways were all presented in damning detail. Emily's face grew paler with every piece of evidence I revealed. "You've been lying to me, Emily," I said, my voice heavy with disappointment. "Those weekends with your girlfriends weren't what you claimed them to be. You've been gambling, and it's tearing our marriage apart." she stammered, attempting to come up with an excuse, but the evidence was irrefutable. The truth had caught up with her, and she had nowhere to hide. Tears welled up in her eyes as the weight of her deception pressed down on her. "I didn't think you'd understand," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "I was just trying to escape the stress, to have some fun." My anger began to ebb, replaced by a profound sadness. I had loved this woman, shared my life with her, and now I was witnessing the unraveling of our relationship. The revenge I had sought suddenly felt bittersweet. "I wish you had talked to me," I said, my voice softer now. "We could have faced your problems together, but instead, you chose to deceive me." Emily wiped away her tears and looked up at me with a mix of regret and desperation. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her words heavy with remorse. The confrontation had taken an unexpected turn. My thirst for revenge had led me to expose her secrets, but now I was left grappling with the consequences. Our marriage was hanging by a thread, and the road to recovery seemed treacherous and uncertain. As we sat in the dimly lit living room, the weight of our shattered trust and broken promises hung heavy in the air. The battle for revenge had left scars on both of us, scars that would take time and effort to heal. Whether our love could withstand this ordeal remained an open question, one that only time would answer. The days following that tumultuous confrontation were some of the most challenging of our marriage. Emily and I faced each other with a mixture of anger, disappointment, and regret. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and understanding, felt like a battleground of emotions. We decided to seek professional help to salvage what remained of our relationship. Our therapist helped us navigate the treacherous waters of trust, communication, and forgiveness. It was a painful process, but gradually we began to rebuild the shattered pieces of our marriage. Emily took steps to address her gambling addiction, attending support groups and therapy sessions to confront the underlying issues that had driven her to deceive me. It wasn't easy, but I saw genuine remorse in her eyes, and that gave me hope. As for my quest for revenge, I realized that it had been a double-edged sword. Yes, it had exposed Emily's deception, but it had also nearly destroyed our marriage. I learned that revenge could be a destructive force, one that consumed not only its target, but also the one seeking it. Over time, as we worked on healing and rebuilding trust, I found it in my heart to forgive Emily. It wasn't a quick or easy process, but forgiveness was the only path forward if we wanted to salvage our relationship. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, I took Emily's hand in mine. "We've been through a lot," I said, my voice soft and filled with emotion. "But I believe in second chances. I believe in us." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she squeezed my hand. "I love you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And I'm so sorry for what I've put you through." We leaned in and shared a kiss filled with the promise of a fresh start. It was a moment of redemption, a moment where we chose to let go of the past and embrace the future together. Our journey wasn't without its challenges, but as the weeks turned into months, our love grew stronger. We rebuilt our marriage on a foundation of honesty, trust, and open communication. The scars of our past were a constant reminder of the price we had paid, but they also served as a testament to our resilience. Revenge had led me down a dark path, but it had ultimately brought us to a place of forgiveness and redemption. Our love had weathered the storm, emerging stronger than ever before. And as we sat on our porch, hand in hand, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I couldn't help but believe that sometimes, even the darkest moments could lead to a brighter future.
Have you ever had meddling in-laws? The kind who can't resist poking their noses into your business, offering unsolicited advice, and generally making your life a living hell? Well, let me tell you, I've been there, and it's no picnic. But what happens when you decide it's time to turn the tables on those meddling in-laws? Allow me to take you on a roller coaster ride through a tale of revenge, redemption, and rekindled love. It all began with a simple vow renewal ceremony, a seemingly innocent gesture to celebrate our love and commitment. Little did we know that it would set the stage for an elaborate plan to teach our in-laws a lesson they'd never forget. With every part of the story, you'll discover the intricacies of our revenge plot, the unexpected twists, and the moments of redemption that changed everything. So buckle up, dear readers, as I recount the story of how we packed our bags, handed over the house papers, and embarked on a journey that would forever alter the dynamics of our family. Intrigued? Well, watch the video to the end, because this story is about to unfold in all its glory. It all started when my in-laws decided they wanted me out of their daughter's life, pronto. But little did they know, I had a plan up my sleeve that would not only secure my place in their hearts, or not, but also have them second-guessing their brilliant idea. First, let's meet the cast of characters. There's me, Kevin, with a knack for turning the tables, and there's my wife, Jane, the love of my life. Then, of course, we have the antagonists of our story, my in-laws, John and Mary, who have made it their mission to rescue their dear daughter from my clutches. Let me regale you with the tale of how my relationship with my wife's parents went from mildly awkward to a full-blown sitcom, complete with scandals and intrigues. Hold on to your hats. It's going to be a bumpy ride. My journey into the labyrinth of in-law relationships began when I married the love of my life, Jane. Our whirlwind romance had been a fairy tale until I met her parents. I didn't realize it then, but they would turn our lives into a never-ending circus act. Meet Jane's father, John. He's the quintessential dad joke king, with a collection of puns that could make a stand-up comedian jealous. However, it's not just the puns, it's the timing. Picture this, Jane and I, dressed to the nines, ready for a romantic dinner, and out of nowhere, he'd chime in with a pun about forks, sending us into fits of laughter. "John, how do you come up with these?" I'd ask, genuinely baffled. He'd grin and reply, "It's all about being well-rounded." But it wasn't just the jokes, it was his obsession with antique cars. He had a knack for spotting rusty relics on the side of the road and insisting that he could restore them to their former glory. Jane and I had lost count of the number of weekends spent in oil-stained garages, surrounded by half-assembled engines and the distinct scent of motor oil. Then there's Jane's mother, Mary, the eternal optimist with a dash of eccentricity. She had an uncanny ability to turn any situation into a heartwarming Hallmark movie script. Once, we got caught in a torrential downpour during a picnic. While Jane and I tried to salvage the soggy sandwiches, Mary declared, "This is just like one of those romantic rain scenes in movies." "Mary," I said, holding a dripping PB&J, "I think they have umbrellas in those scenes." But the piece de resistance was her obsession with knitting. She was convinced that knitting could solve all of life's problems. Stubbed your toe? Knit a cozy for it. Lost your keys? Knit a keychain. She once spent an entire weekend knitting emotional support scarves for us, just in case we ever felt the need for an extra dose of comfort. As you can imagine, our interactions led to a fair share of misunderstandings and mishaps. John once decided to surprise us with an improved front lawn by planting a mini forest of cacti. Yes, you read that correctly. Cacti in our suburban front yard. "John," I sighed, "our neighbors are going to love this." He winked and said, "It's low maintenance, son, and a great conversation starter." Mary, on the other hand, was convinced that I had a hidden talent for knitting. So, she roped me into attending a knitting class with her. Picture me, surrounded by grandmas knitting sweaters for their cats, desperately trying to make sense of knitting needles and yarn. It was an experience, to say the least. Our relationship with the in-laws became increasingly strained. Every visit felt like an expedition into the unknown. John insisted on helping with household chores, which typically ended with him vacuuming the curtains and Jane and me trying to suppress our laughter. Mary, on the other hand, saw our home as a blank canvas for her crafting experiments, with glitter and glue making their way into every crevice. But the real trouble started when they decided that our love life needed a boost. Mary gifted us a book titled Passion Unleashed: Reignite the Fire. The cover featured a shirtless man holding a rose between his teeth. John, of course, couldn't resist adding his touch. A sticky note on the cover that read, "Read this with candles." I turned to Jane, exasperated, and said, "Your parents are trying to turn our bedroom into a shrine of passion." Our home had become a battleground of quirks and eccentricities. But little did we know that the climax of this sitcom was yet to come. One fateful evening, we returned home to find our living room transformed into what can only be described as a psychedelic knitting paradise. There were neon yarns hanging from the ceiling, hand-knit cushions strewn everywhere, and, in the center of it all, Mary sat with a giant ball of multicolored yarn. "Surprise!" she exclaimed. "I call it the knitplosion." I blinked, unable to comprehend the chaos. Jane, my partner in navigating this absurdity, whispered, "We need to do something before they turn our lives into a reality show." And so, we devised a cunning plan. We invited them over for a family meeting, where we gently explained that, while we loved their quirks, it was time for some boundaries. "We appreciate your creativity, but our living room isn't a canvas for artistic expression," I said. John nodded. "And I promise to keep my cacti in my own yard." Mary sighed. "I suppose I can knit less. Aggressively." Our relationships were saved from becoming a full-blown soap opera, but we couldn't help but wonder what scandal or intrigue the in-laws would unleash next. One thing was certain. Life with them was anything but dull. As I recount these tales, I can't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. In-laws can be a handful, but they also bring a unique flavor to life. After all, what's a good sitcom without a cast of quirky characters? But back to my story, our main dish. So, here's how it all went down. My in-laws invited us over for what they claimed was a family meeting. Red flag right there, am I right? I knew it was going to be an ambush, but I decided to play along. As we settled into their posh living room, John cleared his throat, wearing an expression that screamed, "I'm about to drop a bomb on you." "Listen, son," he began. "We've been discussing Jane's future, and we think it's best if you two take a break." I raised an eyebrow. "A break? You mean like a vacation?" Mary chimed in, her face as stern as a school principal's. "No, we mean a breakup. We believe it's for the best." I thought I'd misheard them for a second. A breakup? Really? But then it hit me. This was my golden opportunity. I nodded solemnly, pretending to be defeated. "I see. If that's what you think is best for Jane." Little did they know, I had an ace up my sleeve that would leave them speechless. As we left their house that evening, I made a quick stop at my attorney's office. You see, I had been preparing for this moment for months. I had discreetly bought a house in Jane's name and made her the sole owner without her knowledge. The next day, I sat Jane down for a heart-to-heart talk. I feigned sorrow, telling her that her parents' wishes had finally gotten to me, and I agreed to the breakup. But what I didn't tell her was that I had a little parting gift for my dear in-laws. As we met with them to break the news, John and Mary looked triumphant. "We're glad you finally see reason," John said with a smug grin. I nodded, fighting back a smirk. "Yes, we'll be going our separate ways, just as you wanted. But before we do, I have something for you." And that's when I handed over the house papers to my wife, effectively making her the sole owner of the beautiful house I had bought. Jane's eyes widened in surprise as she realized what had just happened. The expressions on my in-laws' faces were priceless. Shock, disbelief, and a dash of regret danced across their features. "Consider it a parting gift," I said with a wink. "You wanted us to break up, after all." The room fell into a stunned silence. My in-laws were left speechless, and I couldn't have been happier. Revenge was served, and it was delicious. All right, folks, time for continuation of this epic saga of revenge. If you thought things were spicy before, Just wait until you hear what happened next. So there we were, my wife Jane and I, with the house papers officially transferred into her name. The look on my in-laws' faces was a mix of shock, anger, and sheer disbelief. It was the kind of satisfaction you can't put a price on, but I wasn't done with my grand plan just yet. As we bid farewell to John and Mary, Jane and I moved into the new house. Now, let me tell you, it was a beauty. A charming two-story home with a lush garden and a cozy fireplace. It was the perfect place for us to start our separate lives. But here's the kicker. I had secretly arranged for a housewarming party, and I was about to invite every nosy neighbor, friend, and distant relative we had. The plan was simple yet devious. We were going to act like the perfect couple, showering each other with affection and acting as if our breakup was just a minor hiccup in our love story. The invitations went out, and our guests arrived one by one. Jane and I put on quite the show, holding hands, whispering sweet nothings, and basically pretending we were still head over heels in love. I even went all out with a surprise gift for Jane during the party, a framed picture of us from our happiest moments together. As the evening went on, I could see my in-laws growing increasingly uncomfortable. They had expected me to slink away quietly, not throw a lavish housewarming party with Jane. Oh, the irony. The pièce de résistance came when I made a toast to our new beginning. I spoke about our undying love, our unbreakable bond, and how this house symbolized the fresh start we both needed. I could practically see the steam coming out of John's ears as he forced a smile. But the real twist came when I announced that Jane and I had decided to renew our vows right then and there, in front of all our guests. Jane looked at me in surprise, but I could see the spark of mischief in her eyes. She nodded, playing along with the plan. We improvised vows on the spot, promising to love and cherish each other forever. The guests cheered, and my in-laws were left utterly flabbergasted. They couldn't believe their eyes. Their grand plan to break us up had backfired spectacularly. As the night wore on and the party continued, I could see John and Mary slowly slipping away, their spirits crushed. It was a sweet, sweet victory, and revenge had never tasted so good. After our unforgettable housewarming party and vow renewal, my in-laws, John and Mary, were in shambles. It was clear that their scheme to break up Jane and me had fallen apart in the most spectacular fashion. But little did we know that they weren't going to give up so easily. Oh no, they had another card up their sleeves, and they played it like seasoned poker champions. A few weeks after our grand celebration, Jane and I started receiving invitations in the mail. They were for family counseling sessions with a renowned therapist in town. Apparently, my in-laws had taken it upon themselves to book these sessions for us, thinking they could fix our marriage. Now, I'm all for therapy and working on relationships, but this was just another one of their manipulative tactics. They hoped that by forcing us into counseling, they could control the narrative and push us towards divorce. But Jane and I were not about to be pawns in their game. We decided to attend these sessions, but with a plan of our own. We were going to be the model couple, the epitome of love and reconciliation. We'd show the therapist that we were committed to making our marriage work, even though it was all a charade. The first session was awkward, to say the least. We sat in that therapist's office, holding hands and sharing stories about our struggles. Jane shed a few tears for good measure, and I gave her a comforting pat on the back. The therapist, Dr. Caldwell, seemed genuinely invested in our well-being. He gave us advice on communication, trust building, and the importance of spending quality time together. Little did he know that we were following a script written by my in-laws. As the sessions continued, we played our parts to perfection. We laughed together, shared our innermost thoughts, and even went on a weekend getaway that we had no intention of enjoying. Our acting skills were top-notch, and Dr. Caldwell was eating it up. But then came the bombshell. During one particularly emotional session, Jane tearfully confessed that she had been having an affair. She looked at me with remorse in her eyes, and I put on a show of shock and heartbreak. The therapist was taken aback, and my in-laws must have thought they had finally won. However, our plan was about to take an unexpected turn. I decided to confess as well, revealing that I too had been unfaithful. The therapist was now in uncharted territory, faced with a couple who had both strayed but were willing to forgive each other. We spun a tale of forgiveness, redemption, and renewed commitment. Dr. Caldwell was baffled, but he couldn't argue with a couple who claimed to have found their way back to each other through forgiveness. As we left the session that day, I couldn't help but smirk. My in-laws' plan had backfired once again. Instead of tearing us apart, it had brought us closer together. And the look on their faces when we shared the good news was priceless. After our bombshell confessions at the therapy session, Jane and I continued our charade of reconciliation. We played the roles of a couple on the path to forgiveness and healing. Dr. Caldwell, our unwitting therapist, had no idea that we were manipulating the situation to our advantage. Our plan was simple yet diabolical. We would continue to act as the perfect couple, lulling my in-laws into a false sense of security. They must have thought they had won, that their meddling had finally pushed us over the edge. But we had a few tricks up our sleeves. We began dropping hints about a surprise we had in store for them, something that would prove our commitment to each other and silence their doubts once and for all. Curiosity got the better of them, and they couldn't resist asking about our mysterious surprise. With exaggerated enthusiasm, we told them that we were renewing our wedding vows, and we wanted them to be there to witness our recommitment to each other. Their expressions were priceless, a mixture of shock, guilt, and confusion. They had expected us to crumble under the weight of their interference, not come back stronger than ever, but they had no choice but to accept our invitation to the vow renewal ceremony. We spared no expense in planning the event. It was a lavish affair, held in a picturesque garden with flowers, music, and a guest list that included our closest friends and family. My in-laws had no idea what they were walking into. As we stood before our loved ones, Jane and I exchanged heartfelt vows, pledging our love, trust, and loyalty to each other. We spoke of forgiveness and the strength we had found in each other's arms. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. But the pièce de résistance was yet to come. After we exchanged rings, we made a surprise announcement. We revealed that we had decided to sell our house, the very house my in-laws had pressured us to leave. Their expressions shifted from confusion to shock as we explained that we were using the proceeds to embark on a year-long adventure together, traveling the world. We had turned the tables on them once and for all. The house they had tried to take from us was now funding our dream journey, and they were left speechless. As the ceremony concluded, my in-laws approached us, their faces pale. They tried to speak, but the words escaped them. It was the sweet taste of victory. However, the importunity of my meddling in-laws has not gone away, so I had to go the ingenious move that ensures that ensured they would never interfere in our lives again. After our extravagant vow renewal ceremony, my in-laws were a wreck. They had witnessed our love and commitment firsthand, and they knew they couldn't meddle in our lives any longer without facing severe consequences. But we couldn't rely solely on their newfound guilt. The day after the ceremony, Jane and I presented them with a surprise gift, an all-expenses-paid vacation to a remote cabin in the woods. We explained that it was our way of thanking them for their support and understanding during our challenging times. They were initially hesitant, suspicious of our motives, but we insisted it was a genuine gesture of gratitude. We assured them that we had put the past behind us and were ready to move forward with a clean slate. They reluctantly accepted the gift and embarked on their getaway, leaving us with an empty house to prepare for our year-long adventure. Little did they know that this cabin was strategically chosen. It was hours away from any cellular reception or internet access, effectively cutting them off from the outside world. As they settled into their isolated retreat, we sent occasional messages, asking if they were enjoying their vacation and assuring them that we were having a fantastic time planning our travels. Their replies grew less frequent as they immersed themselves in the peaceful surroundings, blissfully unaware of our ultimate plan. A week into their vacation, we received a message from them, admitting that they had realized the error of their ways and regretted their past interference. They confessed that they were now committed to giving us the space and privacy we deserved. It was the moment we had been waiting for. We replied with warmth and forgiveness, telling them that we appreciated their honesty and were willing to move past the past, just as we had promised during our vow renewal. They were overjoyed by our response and expressed their eagerness to make amends. And then, we dropped the bombshell. We explained that our year-long adventure was, in fact, a solo journey, just Jane and me. We told them that it was an opportunity for us to strengthen our bond and reconnect without any external distractions. Their shock was palpable through their messages. They couldn't believe that we had excluded them from our plans after everything they had done. But we reminded them of their newfound commitment to respecting our boundaries and assured them that we would return to them after our journey. As days turned into weeks, my in-laws remained isolated in their cabin, stewing in their realization that they had been outsmarted. We, on the other hand, embarked on the adventure of a lifetime, traveling the world, strengthening our relationship, and creating unforgettable memories. By the time we returned, my in-laws had undergone a transformation. They had reflected on their actions and genuinely changed for the better. They welcomed us home with open arms, ready to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of respect and understanding. And so, dear friends, we conclude our revenge tale with a twist of redemption. My in-laws learned the hard way that meddling in others' lives comes with consequences, but they also learned the value of respecting boundaries and cherishing the bonds of family. As for Jane and me, we emerged from this ordeal stronger than ever, with a newfound appreciation for the power of love, forgiveness, and a well-executed revenge plan. We hope our story serves as a lesson to all those who dare to meddle. Sometimes the tables can turn in the most unexpected and satisfying ways. Thank you for joining us on this wild journey, and may your own lives be free of meddling in-laws and filled with love and adventure.
Have you ever had a moment in life when someone close to you wronged you, and you found yourself at a crossroads, torn between anger and the desire for revenge? It was a similar situation when my sister Lisa borrowed money from me and then flaunted a new, extravagant life. You'd think I'd have been cautious the second time she asked for financial help, but as the events unfolded, I realized this wasn't just about revenge or borrowed money. This is a story about transformation, the unexpected journey of a family member who took a chance, a second chance, and transformed her life beyond recognition. It's about the twists and turns, the ups and downs, and the ultimate quest for redemption and change. Our family's journey was filled with suspense, laughter, and even a touch of irony, making it a tale worth sharing. So let me take you through the roller coaster ride that unfolded after my sister Lisa borrowed money and asked again. My name is Brian, and this is my story. My sister Lisa has always had a taste for the finer things in life, a penchant she chose to satisfy through a medley of loans and borrowing sprees. We grew up in a regular suburban neighborhood with hardworking parents who lived by the ethos of thrift and prudence. Lisa, however, was the black sheep, ever attracted to the shimmer of a lavish lifestyle. When she first asked to borrow money from me, claiming it was for rent and bills, my heart melted in a puddle of sibling love and empathy, and I willingly lent her a substantial amount without hesitation. Imagine my outrage when her supposed struggles were promptly followed by an extravagant vacation to the Bahamas, showcased in a series of flashy social media posts. My mind buzzed with betrayal. So this was her rent and bills. Swallowing my indignation, I decided to confront her. Lisa, I tried to maintain an even tone. I thought you needed money for rent, not for a vacation. Her response was a casual shrug. Oh, things just worked out and I needed the break. Don't be such a prude. I was livid but resolved to bide my time. A concoction of equal parts revenge and enlightenment brewed in my mind. Lisa needed to learn a lesson, one wrapped in layers of humor and irony, a lesson she would never forget. Months went by. and Lisa's taste for opulence showed no signs of waning. One day she approached me again, her voice a well-rehearsed symphony of despair and need. "I am really struggling this time. Could you please lend me some money?" A smirk tugged at the corners of my lips, the plan hatching in my mind almost making me giddy. "Of course, Lisa," I said, my voice dripping with faux concern. "I am always here to help you." What Lisa didn't know was that this time, her brother was ready with a plan, a devious, hilarious scheme to teach her the value of money and honesty. Instead of money, I handed her a series of elaborate puzzles and riddles, a treasure hunt, if you will, with the promise of a hefty cash reward at the end. Lisa, her eyes gleaming with greed, delved right in, oblivious to the moral epiphany awaiting her at the journey's end. The treasure hunt was carefully crafted, leading her through a labyrinth of tasks, each more outrageous and embarrassing than the last. From singing in a chicken costume in the town square to mowing lawns in a ball gown, Lisa's pursuit of wealth saw her throwing caution and dignity to the wind, much to the amusement of friends and strangers alike. As she navigated this wacky obstacle course, I could see the frustration simmering beneath her determined facade. "This has to be worth it," she muttered, beads of sweat crowning her forehead. "The money at the end has to be huge." Her final task led her to our childhood home, to the very room we grew up in. Here, amidst the nostalgia and remnants of our shared past, awaited her treasure, a beautifully wrapped box. Lisa tore into it with the fervor of a child on Christmas morning, only to find it empty, save for a mirror and a note. The mirror, I hoped, would force her to confront her own reflection, her greed and deception laid bare. The note, penned with a mix of love and reproach, read, "Sometimes the real treasure is learning to value what we have, to seek richness in character over wealth, and to find happiness in honesty." Lisa stared at her reflection, a myriad of emotions playing across her face. I waited, my heart pounding, for her reaction. Would she understand the message? Would she see this not as revenge, but as a plea for her to find her moral compass? "I never knew how much I needed this lesson," she finally whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. I stepped forward, enveloping her in a tight hug. "I just want the best for you, Lisa." Her journey of moral awakening was the talk of the town, the humorous antics coupled with the powerful message resonating with many. Lisa, humbled and enlightened, vowed to turn a new leaf, to live a life of sincerity and integrity. And I, the architect of this journey, found solace not in revenge, but in the hope that my sister had finally found her way. After this moral epiphany, Lisa appeared to retreat into a cocoon of self-reflection and contemplation. I hoped she was metamorphosing into a being of virtue and conscience. However, deep inside, a sliver of doubt lingered, whispering warnings of superficial transformations. Weeks turned into months, and Lisa began exhibiting a newfound appreciation for frugality and sincerity. She took up a job and was seemingly living within her means, her social media accounts devoid of any flamboyant displays of wealth or excess. I, albeit cautiously, started believing in her transformation, thinking, perhaps she truly has changed. However, just when I was beginning to let my guard down, something didn't add up. A friend of mine casually mentioned seeing Lisa at a high-end boutique, splurging on luxury items. I felt a mixture of anger and disappointment brewing within me. Was her change just a facade? I decided to dig deeper, to unveil the truth behind her supposed reformation. My investigations led me to a secret social media account, a clandestine canvas where Lisa painted her life in strokes of extravagance and opulence, hidden from the prying eyes of her family and friends. I was dumbfounded. All her talk of change was nothing but a sham. I knew I needed to act, to expose her double life and make her face the repercussions of her deception. However, this time, I wanted the lesson to be public, unforgettable, and most importantly, humorous. I concocted a plan, one that would see Lisa unwittingly revealing her true colors to our circle of friends and family, a surprise intervention-cum-birthday party was organized under the guise of celebrating her newfound sense of responsibility and honesty. The party was set up with meticulous attention to detail. The guests were excited, believing they were here to applaud Lisa's moral reawakening. The air buzzed with anticipation, the undercurrent of my ingenious revelation making my heart race. She won't see this coming. Lisa walked in, greeted by cheers and applause, completely oblivious to the storm brewing. I stepped forward, the perfect picture of a proud brother, and began my speech. We are all here to celebrate Lisa's transformation. The room reverberated with claps and whistles. However, the cheerful atmosphere was soon replaced by gasps and whispers as I projected Lisa's secret social media account onto a large screen, unveiling her life of deceit and luxury. The crowd stared in shock, disbelief painted on their faces, and all eyes turned to Lisa, awaiting an explanation. Lisa, her face a palette of embarrassment and guilt, tried to stutter out an explanation. I didn't mean to. It's not what it looks like. The room was tense, a collective breath held in anticipation. I broke the silence, my voice a mixture of humor and admonition. Lisa, we are not here to criticize, but to help you face your own contradictions. I revealed that this intervention was my doing, a brother's desperate attempt to help his sister find her true self. Laughter and murmurs filled the room, the crowd appreciating the clever, ironic twist. Lisa, although red-faced and exposed, seemed to understand that this was not a vendetta, but a wake-up call, delivered with a side of humor and love. This revelation, coupled with the public humorous exposure, became the catalyst for genuine change in Lisa. She realized the folly of her ways, the emptiness of a life built on lies and materialism. Her eyes, now open, were filled with tears of realization and remorse. I am so sorry. I promise to be better. This day marked the beginning of Lisa's true transformation, a journey from superficiality to substance, from deception to sincerity. I, her brother, watched with pride and hope as Lisa embraced her flaws and embarked on the path of redemption, her journey a blend of humor, love, and moral awakening. Lisa's journey towards transformation after the intervention was marked with both introspection and tangible efforts to change. Our family was hopeful, yet a shadow of skepticism lingered, whispering, "Is this transformation real, or just another act in her elaborate play of deception?" Lisa took up more shifts at her work, signed up for financial literacy classes, and even started volunteering at a local shelter. Her actions seemed to echo her newfound values, making me think, maybe this time she's sincere. However, the real test of her transformation arrived unexpectedly. One evening, she approached me, her face an interplay of hesitation and hope. "I need to borrow some money again." My immediate reaction was a blend of disbelief and anger. Here we go again, another scheme under the guise of need. But her next words were like a gentle breeze, dissipating the fog of doubt and resentment. "I've been saving and working hard, but I've fallen short for my rent. I promise to pay back every penny," she implored earnestly, her eyes a clear pool of sincerity. Observing her actions and listening to her sincere plea, I found myself in a quandary. Is helping her the right choice, or am I falling into another one of her traps? The next days were a roller coaster of contemplation and internal debates. Should I trust her again? Is she truly changed, or is this just a meticulous, well-crafted act to exploit my goodwill? Then a subtle yet brilliant idea sparked in my mind, an idea that could verify her sincerity and potentially provide a humorous, enlightening lesson if she was being deceitful. If she's sincere, she deserves help, but if not, a dash of humor-infused karma won't hurt. I decided to lend her the money, but with an unorthodox condition. She would receive the rent money in pennies. Yes, you read that right, pennies. I thought to myself, this will be the perfect test. If her need is genuine, she'll accept it with grace, but if it's a facade, her reaction will expose her true intentions. I procured bags of pennies, a sum hefty enough to cover her rent, and presented them to her. Her reaction was a symphony of shock, disbelief, and finally, a hearty laugh. "I guess I deserve this. It will be a workout paying my rent in pennies." Her response, marked by humility and humor, was the final piece in the puzzle of trust, confirming her sincerity and validating her transformation. I felt a rush of relief and pride. She's truly changed. She understands the value of money and the importance of sincerity. This penny ordeal became a cherished family anecdote, a humorous reminder of the importance of honesty and the consequences of deception. It served as a beacon for Lisa, illuminating her path towards true transformation, with every penny symbolizing a step away from her past and towards a future built on sincerity and substance. Her journey was not without its bumps and twists, but her resolve stayed strong, the lessons learned from her humorous, penny-filled redemption acting as her compass. The family watched, a mix of amusement and pride as Lisa evolved, her actions and values finally in harmonious synchrony. "I've learned that the facade of extravagance is not worth the price of losing one's values and trust," she would often say, a smile dancing on her lips, her eyes sparkling with the light of true transformation. In the weeks that followed, Lisa's transformation continued to unfold in layers, revealing a persona we never knew existed within her. She was more mindful, grounded, and had cultivated a newfound appreciation for the simpler things in life. Her zeal for flashy living seemed to have dissolved into the background, overshadowed by a deeper understanding of life's true values. Every conversation with her was like peeling an onion, uncovering more layers of her evolving personality, making me think, "Is this the sister I grew up with?" Her discussions were now infused with reflections and insights, rather than her usual tales of extravagant exploits and indulgences. Lisa seemed to be walking the path of redemption with a purposeful stride, her every step echoing her commitment to change. However, life has a way of presenting us with curveballs, testing our resolve and our newfound wisdom. One day, Lisa received an invitation to an extravagant event hosted by her old friends, the ones who had witnessed and participated in her past life of extravagance and deception. My initial thought was, this is a trap, a labyrinth that could pull her back into her old ways. I watched her closely, curious and slightly apprehensive as she considered the invitation. Would she succumb to the allure of her past life, or would her newfound values guide her through this test? In an unexpected, yet pleasantly surprising move, Lisa decided to attend the event, not with the intention to indulge, but to showcase her transformation and perhaps inspire a change in her friends. I could not help but feel a mixture of pride and anxiety. Is she strong enough to face the temptations lurking in her past environment? The day of the event arrived, and Lisa, dressed in a simple, elegant outfit, left with a promise. "I'm not the person I once was, and I intend to prove it." Her words were like a soothing melody, calming the storm of worries brewing within me. At the event, the air was thick with opulence, each detail screaming extravagance. Lisa's entrance was met with a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and whispers, her simple elegance a stark contrast to the flashy ambiance. Is this the Lisa we know? The air seemed to echo the silent question. Lisa, with her newfound grace and wisdom, navigated the event, her every move and word a testament to her transformation. She engaged in conversations, not about her latest splurges, but about her journey, her lessons, and her aspirations. Her words were like seeds, sown in the minds of her friends, challenging their perceptions and provoking introspection. I was told that the whisperings grew, not of disbelief, but of admiration and reflection. Her old friends found themselves at a crossroads, facing the mirror of truth presented by Lisa's transformation. Is the life we are living truly fulfilling, or are we just prisoners of our own illusions? As Lisa shared her journey, her struggles and her revelations, a ripple of change spread through the room. The air was charged with a newfound energy, a blend of realization, reflection, and the whisperings of transformation. The event, intended to be a celebration of extravagance, turned into a symposium of life's true values and the essence of fulfillment. Lisa left the event, her heart light and her spirit buoyant, her mission accomplished. The whispers of change continued to resonate, with some of her friends reaching out, expressing their admiration and their desire to embark on their journeys of transformation. In witnessing Lisa's journey and its profound impact, I found myself engulfed in a mixture of pride, relief, and enlightenment. True transformation is not just about changing oneself, but about inspiring change in others. The echo of this realization stayed with me, reshaping my perceptions and enriching my understanding of life's true essence. It was in this atmosphere of revelation and rediscovery that Lisa approached me once more, her eyes radiating a mix of humility and resolve. "I need to borrow money again," she confessed, her voice a soft symphony of vulnerability and sincerity. "I want to invest it in a project, something that can help people rediscover themselves, just like I did." In any other circumstance, I would have been hesitant, but seeing the transformative journey Lisa had undertaken and the positive ripple it had created, I found myself contemplating. Is this the opportunity to support a cause that could bring about change, not just in one individual, but potentially in many? I extended the support she requested, not out of obligation or family ties, but out of belief in her vision and her capacity to bring it to life. This is not just a loan, but an investment in transformation, in a vision that could ignite a wave of change, I thought, feeling a spark of hope and excitement. Lisa embraced the opportunity with passion and commitment, channeling her energy and resources into creating a platform for transformation and self-discovery. She called it the Awakening Oasis, a space where individuals could embark on journeys of self-exploration, shedding their illusions and discovering their true selves. The project was a melting pot of workshops, seminars, and counseling sessions, each designed to peel away the layers of pretense and awaken the essence of true living. It became a sanctuary for those seeking purpose, fulfillment, and authentic happiness. The news of the Awakening Oasis spread, drawing individuals from various walks of life, each with their unique stories and their aspirations for change. The space became a haven for transformation, a place where lives were reshaped, visions redefined, and spirits rejuvenated. Lisa's journey had come full circle, her transformation not just a personal victory, but a beacon of hope and inspiration for many. She had turned her life around, from a seeker of shallow pleasures to a harbinger of profound change. Her story is a testament to the power of transformation, a narrative of redemption and awakening, I mused, witnessing the unfolding of her vision. As I watched Lisa, the architect of change, weaving her tapestry of transformation, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and admiration. She has transformed her borrowed chance into a legacy of change, I reflected, seeing the waves of transformation emanating from her project. The repayment of the loan was not in currency, but in the rich tapestry of changed lives, enlightened spirits, and the blossoming of true values. The echoes of transformation were the true repayment, a symphony of awakening resonating far and wide, transcending the boundaries of material worth.